It was a quiet morning inside the city's biggest bank. The sound of shoes clicking on the floor, papers shuffling, and soft conversations filled the air. People stood in line, checking their phones or talking in whispers. Everyone seemed in a hurry, but no one wanted to show it. In the middle of the line stood a black woman named Angela. She wore a clean, simple black dress and held a brown folder close to her chest. Her hair was neat, and her eyes looked calm but sharp. She didn't smile or frown. She just waited patiently. Some people in the line gave her odd looks. One man behind her raised his eyebrow. A woman in front turned around and stared at her clothes. There was judgment in their eyes, but Angela didn't respond. She stood still, her head high. Behind the counter stood Jake, a young white bank teller. He looked bored. He tapped his pen on the desk, sighing loudly between customers. When his eyes fell on Angela, something in his face changed. He narrowed his eyes. He whispered something to the teller beside him. They both laughed. Angela saw it, but she didn't move. The line moved slowly. One by one, people were called forward. Finally, it was Angela's turn. She walked up to Jake's counter. "Next," Jake said, without looking up. Angela placed her folder gently on the desk and spoke softly, "Good morning." Jake finally looked at her. His smile was fake, his tone sharp. "Do you even have an account here?" he asked loudly, making people nearby look over. Angela nodded calmly. "Yes, I do." Jake took her ID and scanned it slowly. He turned the card over in his hand, then looked at her again. "This doesn't even look like you," he said. Angela stayed quiet. "What are you here for?" he continued, louder this time. "You people always come in with fake documents, wasting everyone's time." Angela blinked slowly. "I'm here to speak with someone from corporate." Jake laughed. "Corporate? You think they'll meet you?" Now people were watching more closely. A few took out their phones. Jake leaned forward. "Listen, if this is about some made-up problem with your account, go fill a complaint form. Don't waste my time with your fake corporate meetings." Angela opened her folder and pulled out a paper. "This letter is from your head office," she said calmly. Jake didn't even read it. He waved it away. "Look, just stop pretending. You probably got that from the internet." Angela gently placed the letter back into the folder. Then she looked him straight in the eye and said just one line, "You'll regret this very soon." Jake smirked. "Oh, will I? What are you going to do? Call the manager?" Angela didn't reply. She picked up her folder and walked away from the counter. Her heels clicked softly against the marble floor as she left the main area and stood near the exit. She pulled out her phone and dialed a number. Her voice was low, but clear. "Activate the plan. It's time." She hung up. Jake laughed from behind the counter, not realizing what was coming. Angela stood near the exit of the bank, her phone back in her purse. Her face was calm, but her eyes held something powerful, something strong and quiet. She looked back at the counter one last time. Jake, the young teller, was still laughing with his coworker. He thought he had embarrassed her. He thought she had walked away, defeated. But Angela was just getting started. A few customers near the exit whispered to each other. Why was he so rude? She didn't do anything wrong. That guy's always acting like he owns the place. Angela turned around and walked toward the security desk. A short, overweight guard named Rick stood there, sipping coffee and pretending not to care. "I'd like to speak to the branch manager," Angela said politely. Rick looked her up and down. "Do you have an appointment?" Angela smiled slightly. "No, but I believe he'll want to speak to me." Rick rolled his eyes and picked up the phone lazily. "Yeah, someone here wants to talk to you." "Yeah, some woman." "Okay." He put the phone down and said, "He's busy. Come back later." Angela nodded. "No problem. I'll wait." Rick shrugged and went back to scrolling on his phone. Angela sat on a bench nearby and watched the clock tick. She was in no rush. She had waited years for this moment. A little longer didn't bother her. Meanwhile, Back at the teller counter, Jake was still joking about Angela. She walked in like she owned the place, he said loudly, pretending to walk with exaggerated style, talking about corporate like she was the boss. His coworker giggled, but some customers were clearly uncomfortable. An older man in line whispered to his wife, "I didn't like how he treated that woman. Something didn't feel right." Jake noticed a few people staring at him, so he raised his voice again. "Come on, people. You all saw it. She had no appointment. Just a random folder and a fake story." A young woman from the line spoke up. She was polite. "You didn't have to embarrass her like that." Jake ignored her. Back in the corner of the bank, Angela's phone buzzed. A message flashed. "He's ready. Let's begin." She stood up, smoothed her dress, and walked calmly back to the front desk. "I believe now would be a good time to meet the manager," she said. Rick looked confused. "What do you mean?" Angela pointed toward the glass office upstairs. A man in a suit had just stepped out. His face turned pale when he saw her. He rushed down the stairs. "Ms. Moore," he said, almost out of breath. "We weren't expecting you so soon." Rick looked shocked. Jake, who had just finished helping another customer, turned around slowly. "Wait, Ms. Moore." The manager extended his hand nervously. "Would you like to speak in my office?" Angela nodded. "Yes, and bring the teller named Jake with you." Jake's face turned white. "What's going on?" he asked quietly. "You'll find out soon," Angela said without looking at him. Inside the manager's office, Angela sat at the head of the meeting table. The manager stood beside her, sweating. Jake sat opposite, looking like a scared child. Angela placed her folder on the table and opened it. She took out 3 documents and slid them across to the manager. One had her photo and the title. Angela Moore, Regional Executive, National Bank Corporation. Jake's heart dropped. The second was a formal audit request. The third was an incident report, already prepared. "I was sent here," Angela began, "to see how your team treats ordinary customers, especially women of color." The manager looked like he wanted to sink into the floor. Jake couldn't speak. His mouth was dry. His hands shook. Angela leaned forward, her voice still calm. "You mocked me, loudly. You called my documents fake. You embarrassed me in front of a full lobby, all without knowing who I was." Jake tried to speak, but no words came out. Angela stood. "We'll speak more in part 2 of this review. For now, you are both suspended, effective immediately." She turned and walked out of the office, leaving behind silence, fear, and a lesson no one in that building would forget. Angela walked out of the bank manager's office like a queen, calm, powerful, and proud. Every step she took echoed through the bank. Customers stared. Staff stood frozen. Some even whispered, "She's the CEO." No one had seen it coming. The woman they judged for her clothes, the woman the teller mocked, was actually the regional executive, one of the top leaders of the bank. And now, everything was about to change. Angela didn't look back. She exited the building, stepped into her black car, and made a phone call. "Begin the full report," she said. Her assistant on the other end replied, "Yes, ma'am. We've already started pulling all the security footage. Internal Affairs is on standby." Angela leaned back in her seat. Her calm face finally broke into a small, tired smile. "This isn't just about me," she whispered. "It's about everyone they've disrespected." Inside the bank, chaos had started. Jake sat in the break room, his hands covering his face. His phone was blowing up. Messages from friends, family, even coworkers. "What did you do? You messed with the regional executive. You're on camera. Bro, this is bad." The bank manager, Mr. Phillips, stood in his office pacing back and forth. "How could you be so stupid, Jake?" he yelled earlier. Jake didn't answer. He couldn't. He thought Angela was just another woman with a folder. He had judged her by her skin, her voice, and her confidence. Now he was facing suspension and possibly losing his job forever. The next day, things got worse. Angela sent a team of compliance officers and internal investigators to the branch. 3 people in black suits arrived early in the morning. They had files, checklists, and serious expressions. The bank staff was tense. No one smiled. No one talked. The investigators pulled employees into a side room, one by one. Some of the interviews were simple. Have you ever seen Jake treat other customers badly? Do you feel the workplace is fair for everyone? But others were more intense. Were there any reports ignored by management? Have complaints ever been hidden from corporate? One young employee, Maria, finally spoke up. She had been working at the bank for only 8 months. She was shy, always afraid to speak. But something about Angela's strength gave her courage. I saw Jake treat another black woman badly last month, Maria said, her voice shaking. She came to open an account. He told her to leave and said she didn't look like a client. The investigator wrote everything down. Angela watched from a distance. Her heart was heavy. She had hoped this was just a one-time mistake, a bad day from a rude teller. But now it was clear. This branch had a pattern. Angela stayed in town for 3 days. She didn't stay in fancy hotels. She didn't announce her presence. She walked in and out of the branch quietly, watching from the lobby like a regular customer. This time, no one dared to speak rudely. People were polite, alert, maybe even afraid. On the 3rd day, Angela visited the break room where some employees were having lunch. They stood up quickly when they saw her. Relax, she smiled. I'm not here to fire anyone. She looked at Maria and said gently, "Thank you for speaking up." Maria nodded, almost in tears. Angela continued, "Let me tell you something. I grew up in a poor neighborhood. People laughed at my dreams. They said I'd never wear a suit or sit in a big office. But I worked hard. I studied at night. I kept showing up, even when people treated me badly." She looked around the room. "So when I come to a place like this, and I see someone being disrespected just because of the color of their skin or the clothes they wear, I don't ignore it. I act." Everyone was quiet. Angela's voice was soft but strong. Every word hit their hearts. "I don't want fear in this branch," she said. "I want fairness." By the end of the week, 3 things had happened. Jake's suspension became termination, permanent. The manager, Mr. Phillips, was placed under review. New diversity and respect training was ordered for the entire staff. Angela left the city quietly. But her impact stayed. People whispered about her for days. Some said she was strict. Others said she was powerful. But those who truly understood, they said something else. She stood up for what was right. Back at her office in the city's main bank headquarters, Angela sat by the window, sipping a warm cup of tea. Her assistant knocked gently. "Ma'am," she said, "we finished reviewing all complaints from that branch." Angela turned slowly, her face calm but focused. "Show me." The assistant handed over a thick folder. Inside it were dozens of emails, handwritten notes, and complaint forms, all ignored by the branch manager. Angela flipped through them. Some were months old. One stood out, a letter from a single mother who had written, "Your staff humiliated me when I asked to speak to a loan officer. They laughed at me. I walked out in tears." Angela closed the folder, her hands tightening slightly. She had seen enough. The next morning, she returned to the same branch, unannounced. People were shocked to see her again. Some whispered. Some quickly fixed their clothes and posture. Angela didn't look around. She walked straight to the manager's office and opened the door without knocking. Mr. Phillips, the manager, stood up quickly, nervous. "Ms. Angela, I didn't expect." Angela held up her hand. "No need to pretend now." He swallowed hard. She placed the folder on his desk. "I trusted this branch. But what I found here," she paused, her voice firm, "is a culture of arrogance, ignorance, and disrespect. Mr. Phillips tried to explain. "Ma'am, I didn't know about those letters. Maybe the team missed." "You missed nothing," she interrupted. "You chose not to act. You ignored the voices that needed help. And you let people like Jake grow bold." She leaned closer. "You've failed the customers. And you failed me." Tears formed in Mr. Phillips' eyes. "I've been with this bank for 22 years. Angela didn't flinch. "And in those years, you forgot what leadership means." A long silence. Then she said 4 simple words. "You're officially relieved." Immediately. That afternoon, Angela gathered the entire bank staff in the lobby. It had been 3 days since Angela's surprise visit to the bank branch. The air inside the building felt heavy, like a storm waiting to hit. The whispers wouldn't stop. Everyone talked about how the woman Jake insulted wasn't just any customer. She was the CEO. Jake sat alone in the staff room, staring at his cold coffee. His hands were shaking. His chest felt tight. He hadn't slept properly in days. Every time he closed his eyes, he remembered her calm voice. "You'll regret this very soon." And now, he truly did. Jake had grown up thinking he was better than others. He was always told, "You look like a leader," or "people like you will go far." He believed that. And when he started working at the bank, he carried that pride with him. But pride had turned into arrogance. He mocked customers without thinking. He looked down on people who didn't wear suits or speak in perfect English. And Angela, he had treated her like dirt, just because she didn't look rich, just because she was black, just because he thought she was nobody. Now, the truth was burning him from inside. The branch manager was gone. Angela had fired Mr. Phillips herself, and Jake knew he was next. That morning, his phone buzzed. "Jake, report to the main office. Immediately." It was from Human Resources. Jake's heart dropped. He grabbed his coat and walked out, feeling everyone's eyes on him. Angela sat quietly in the conference room at headquarters. She didn't dress fancy. She didn't need to. Jake had never been to this part of the city before. The streets were narrow. The buildings looked old. Some shops had broken signs. Children played in dusty alleys. Life here was different. Slower. Tougher. The new bank branch was small. Just 2 desks, 1 manager, and a few staff. No big glass doors. No shining floors. No rich clients in suits. Jake stepped in wearing his polished shoes and expensive coat. He stood there awkwardly. No one greeted him. The branch manager, a tired-looking woman named Mrs. Layla, came forward. She didn't smile. "You must be the one they sent from headquarters," she said. Jake nodded. "I'm here to learn." She raised an eyebrow. "You mean you're here because you messed up?" Jake lowered his eyes. "Yes." She handed him a mop. "Good. Then start by cleaning the floor." Jake looked confused. "I thought I'd be." She interrupted. "This is your role here. No desk. No suit. No shortcuts. We clean our own messes." At first, Jake hated everything. The broken air conditioner. The customers who didn't speak English well. The long lines. The noise. The heat. But slowly, something started to shift. Every day, Jake arrived early and left late. He cleaned floors, counted cash, and helped fill forms. He watched the staff treat every customer with patience, even when things got tough. One day, a young single mother came in with her baby. She was confused about a form. She didn't have proper documents. Jake, who once mocked people like her, now patiently helped her. He even made the baby smile by making a paper airplane. The mother said softly, "You're kind." Jake felt something break inside. Kind. No one had called him that before. One evening, after closing time, Jake sat outside on the steps, watching the sunset. Mrs. Layla sat beside him. "You've changed," she said. Jake gave a small smile. "I think I was blind before. I thought I was better than others. Now I see. I was empty. Layla looked at him closely. You know, people here may not have money, but they have hearts. You learn to listen. Jake nodded. And to care. Back at the main office, Angela read the reports from the small branch. She saw the manager's notes. Jake is no longer the same man. He helps. He listens. He stays late. The customers like him. Angela closed the file. But her heart was not ready to believe just yet. She had seen too many people pretend. So, she made a decision. She would visit the branch herself, without telling anyone. The next day, the small branch was busy. People were lined up. The phone rang nonstop. Jake moved quickly, helping an old man fill out a form, guiding a woman to the right counter, offering a child a candy. Angela walked in, wearing simple clothes and a scarf. No one recognized her. She stood in line, quietly watching Jake. Then it happened. An angry customer pushed forward, shouting at the staff. Jake stepped in calmly. "Sir, please wait your turn. We'll help you." "I don't want your help," the man shouted. "You think you're better than me." Jake didn't get angry. He looked the man in the eye and said gently, "No, sir. I know how it feels to be treated like I'm less. I won't do that to you. Please, let me help." Angela felt her eyes sting with emotion. This was not the same Jake who had mocked her in the big bank. This was a man who had learned humility. Later that day, after closing time, Jake stayed back to sweep the floor. Angela walked in. He turned, surprised. "Angela," he said. She removed her scarf and smiled. "You've come a long way," she said softly. Jake looked down. "You gave me a chance. You didn't have to." Angela nodded. "And now I see. You've earned it." She reached into her bag and handed him an envelope. Jake opened it with shaking hands. It was a letter, his official promotion. He looked at her, confused. Angela smiled. "You're going back to headquarters. But this time, not as a teller." Jake's eyes widened. "You'll be training others, teaching them what you learned here, teaching them about respect." Jake was speechless. "I don't deserve this," he whispered. Angela placed a hand on his shoulder. "Then prove it. Every day." As Angela walked out of the small branch, she looked up at the sky. She had trusted her instinct, and she had been right. People could change, when given the right reason. But the most powerful lesson, sometimes, those who fall the hardest rise the strongest. A few weeks had passed. The big bank was busy again. The same glass doors, clean white floors, and long lines. Staff moved quickly, wearing polished shoes and forced smiles. Nothing had changed on the surface, but something big was coming. Angela sat in her office, watching the monitors. She looked calm but sharp. She had invited all the staff to the lobby for a special meeting. "Important announcement," she had said. Rumors were flying. Maybe a new manager is coming. Maybe she's closing a branch. Maybe she's firing someone. Jake stood at the entrance, dressed in a fresh suit. He looked confident, but not arrogant. His eyes were softer now. His steps were lighter. He carried no anger or ego. Many of the staff stared at him. "Is that Jake? No way. What is he doing here?" Angela stepped into the lobby. Everyone went quiet. She looked around slowly, then spoke. "3 months ago, something happened here that forced me to go undercover. I was insulted, judged, and humiliated by one of our own." Staff whispered. Some looked at Jake. Others looked at each other. Angela continued. "But instead of firing him that day, I decided to teach him something. I sent him to the smallest branch we have, a place where real people come with real struggles." She looked at Jake and nodded. He didn't run. He didn't quit. He listened. He learned. And now, she smiled. "I'm proud to welcome him back." People gasped. Jake stepped forward. Angela held up a paper. This is Jake's new role, training manager for customer respect and equality. He will lead workshops across all branches, teaching what he learned. Some staff clapped slowly. Others still looked shocked. Suddenly, a familiar voice broke the silence. Wait a minute. It was the head teller, Mr. Clark, the same man who had once defended Jake. You're saying he gets promoted after what he did? Angela turned to him calmly. Yes, but what about the rest of us? We followed the rules. We were never punished. Angela raised her hand. I'm not rewarding mistakes. I'm rewarding change. She looked around. Too many of you think wearing a suit makes you powerful, but power comes from how you treat people. Kindness, respect. That's real leadership. Silence. Then, an old cleaner stepped forward. Her name was Mary. She had worked at the bank for 20 years. She had never spoken at a staff meeting before. She looked at Jake. I saw him when he came back. He held the door for me. He said good morning. He helped me carry a heavy bag without anyone watching. That's the kind of person we need here. Jake looked surprised and thankful. Angela nodded. Exactly. Later that day, Angela invited Jake into her office. He sat across from her, nervous but proud. You did well, she said. Jake smiled. Thank you for believing in me. Angela leaned back in her chair. I didn't believe in you at first. I believed in the chance that people can grow. She paused, then added, and you proved me right. Jake looked out the window. So, what now? Angela smiled. Now you teach others, and when you meet someone who reminds you of your old self, give them a chance, like I gave you. The next morning, Jake stood at the front of a training room filled with new bank staff. He took a deep breath and began. Before you look at someone's clothes, look at their eyes. The room went quiet. Before you judge someone's name, accent, or skin, ask yourself one question. Would I want to be treated this way? People leaned forward. I once made the biggest mistake of my life in this very bank, he continued. But one woman taught me that respect is not about status. It's about heart. Meanwhile, Angela walked into her office, holding a photo. It was an old picture of her father, the man who had taught her never to forget where she came from. She placed the photo on her desk and whispered, We're changing the game, Dad. One person at a time. As she looked out at the city skyline, the sun broke through the clouds. A new chapter had begun, not just for the bank, but for everyone who believed that dignity always wins.